Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, yes, I have finally been productive. Some of you would say. I have contributed my piece to Call of Dragon Society. In that, a new suggestion was just made on the official Call of Dragons Discord. I made it. I'm going to show you that suggestion because I think personally, now keep in mind, it's not as though this suggestion hasn't been made before. But I am very much of the opinion that you got to keep trucking. You got to keep putting your best foot forward and you got to be consistent. If you keep it up and you're consistent and you stay, let's just say, an educational but lovingly annoying gnat in people's ears, i.e., the COD team, maybe you might get somewhere. And so today, the suggestion that we have provided, we're going to go over there and I'm going to have a link to the suggestion too as well in the pinned comment description in case you would like to support and upvote it or downvote it if it's something that you don't necessarily agree with. That's fine too. Today, we're going to talk about unit tier kill breakdowns. And what exactly do I mean by that? Well, this is something that has been in Rise of Kingdoms for a while, very long time. I don't know if it was there in beta, but I know it was there probably around like the 200 to 300 kingdoms, I think, from what I recall. I'm hoping that's right, but someone can correct me or let us know. So this would be, for example, me clicking on someone on a leaderboard, clicking on the profile, going to more info, and then being able to, for example, let's say I clicked on units killed, and then a drop down would pop, right? Or I clicked on deads or heals, and a drop down would pop, and then it would show tier 5, tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, right? In that order, top down. And it would say, this is how many kills. This is the breakdown. This is how many kills of each tier you have. This is how many deads of each tier you have. This is how many heals of each tier you have. Now, we can expand on this and we can even do something, for example, like if we wanted to talk about merit points, right? Where maybe I could click on someone's merit points and it would give me a breakdown. Glory points you can think of, right? But for today's video and for the purposes of keeping it consistent, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us that, because that helps out a lot. Thanks. We're just focusing on kills, deads, and heals. Sometimes you got to crawl before you can walk. Baby steps can really help. So let me point out, and I'm going to show you the suggestion that I posted now on the official Discord. And we're going to read through it, and I'm going to break down a little bit of some of the line items. However, I thought about this late. And I think what I'm going to do next time is when I have certain suggestions, I am going to crowdsource some of these. Like I'm going to vet it out a little bit, Shark Tank it a bit, right? So I think next time when I do a suggestion, I'm going to reach out to some other people from different kingdoms, different alliances, and I'm going to ask them and say, hey, look, this is what I got so far. What else would you add? Would you maybe change something, reword something? I think this is one of those things where, sure, even if I think I have a really good idea, I don't think there's anything wrong with crowdsourcing stuff. Just to touch it up a little bit, to fine tune it a bit more, maybe you can add things that can make excellent points that you just may not have thought of in that moment. So that's something I'm going to be doing going forward. But I do think we have a really good foundation right now. So let me read through this. So my suggestion, as I simply put, is we would like to see unit tiers 1 through 5 breakdowns for kills, deaths, and heals to show lifetime stats on player profiles publicly. That's exactly what I just showed you. So again, we're starting off small. We could even break this down, which is to the number 2 point that I'll talk about in a sec. But for me, I thought, okay, well, what's the easiest way? Like if we just need to build the foundation and get it there in its simplest form, what is that? How do we do that? So that's why number 1 was written the way it was. Number 2, building off the suggestion, this is like an honorable mention for the future, is doing things like seasonal stats. An example of seasonal stats, right, where I say this can be a drop-down, minimize, expand feature, though it would show publicly on player profiles for every season that they have played on their account. Merit and glory points could be added as well based on unit tiers. I forgot to say added, but it's kind of implied, right? And so an example of that would be, and let's go back real quick so I can show you this. So an example, if we were talking seasonal stuff, that would be me clicking on more info and then somewhere like where it says like these, right? So they're not these, this. So one of these tabs, except it would say seasonal stats. And if I click the drop down, it would show me things like what were the kills, deaths, heals, merits, and or glory points accumulated that season. right? And it would just show you the totals. So again, maybe it would show you real time if it updated every so often, but worst case, at minimum, it would show you once the season has ended, right? It would show you what those numbers are. That to me, I think would be fantastic if we could see something like that. Now you can build on that. You could say, well, hey, that'd be cool. Then would it be able to show me an average, right? So something like battle statistics, could it show me an average? Like what's my average seasonal merits accumulated? Average kills, deaths, heals, right? Like you can build on it. But the point is that you need the base information to build anything off of it, to go anywhere, to do anything with. So that's why for me, I thought, okay, well, this is a great focal point because if we can get this in, then we can build off of it even more. So now let's read why add this feature. What are some of the line items I've had? And I'll expand a little bit on it as well, because I think having a little bit of an explanation can really help in this case. So number one here, building healthy, active, engaging, and high morale kingdoms. Now this kind of goes without saying, but by being able to know these stats and have this data available to you, it really is just an additional layer of being able to have a well-rounded kingdom. And for the players that are there, the alliances and the management teams that are running it, just from being able to know this particular information, you can do things, and this is me kind of giving a general broad view, right, that kind of leads into some of these. But one of the things is that you can set clear expectations as a kingdom. An example of this would be if you are recruiting players. If you are setting expectations for that season, you can more appropriately look at things like, okay, well, what are my averages in my kingdom for maybe the top, the mid, the lower tier players, or if you're doing things based on power ranges, what are people hitting every season? You can more appropriately set goals and expectations instead of what some kingdoms are doing is, again, if you maybe don't track seasonal stats and you're just looking at the most recent season as an example, you might see some kingdoms that just set a universal line. They just say, well, here's the line. Doesn't matter what power you are, or if you're 60 mil and above, or you're T5 and above, whatever bare minimum is, that's what the line is. And if you don't meet that line, then, okay, you snooze, you lose. Now you're out of the kingdom. That can also cause things like player disappointment. You can have negative reactions from that. That can cause people to stop playing, stop spending, because for all of a sudden, or now they're not all of a sudden, but now they're kind of, now they feel like this goal is unreachable. This doesn't mean that this applies to everyone, but it can apply to some. And that's the point, is that when you have more data available, it allows for you to do things like have a more fair and realistic approach on any kind of goalposts that you are setting for the players' alliances within your kingdom. Next one, having realistic expectations as a player on what kingdom is and is not for you at that time. Or you could say in the moment. And what this means is that if players were able to know more publicly what kind of number minimums or prerequisites or requirements they should be able to show on their profile and or exceed when they are playing, they would then be able to have a better idea on what kingdom they should actually go to. And the reason why this is important is I'll just give you an extreme example. Let's say, I can't tell you how many people I know that have gone to kingdoms, and I'll just say some, just to keep it conservative and fair, that have gone to kingdoms and they ended up not meeting the requirements after going. They underperformed, in short. And this is something that's really important to understand, because you may know someone or may have been in a situation like this for yourself before, where you're coming to terms with, well, damn, okay, right? Or maybe you underperformed in a different way. Maybe it wasn't just PvP and KvK, but it was something else. The point being is that this is something that can impact your day-to-day playing experience when you end up landing in a kingdom that isn't what you thought it was going to be. And this is one of those areas that can really help with that, because it can give you a clearer picture on what your expectations should be going forward. Hang on, sweetie. The next one here is helping players navigate migration more efficiently, so they don't waste money going somewhere where they may not fit. This is kind of an additional layer to that, but it really impacts a player experience in the game a lot. Why? Because If you think about game health, you could say to yourself, well, what's an area of that? Okay, well, the money that people are spending, the financial investment that an individual has, maybe even the financial investment that players have in that kingdom that they play in, depending on who they receive. And so, if you're trying to figure out the best place to go, this can help you figure that out. Where instead of you spending money, because I've heard stories of people spending money, migrating out, going somewhere, and it just not working out. And it not working out on more of the contribution and performance side more than other areas. And this is just another layer that can really help you fine tune that. So that way you don't feel like you spent this money going to a kingdom that, again, wasn't the right fit for you. And I think everyone can be happy with saving some money. Next one, to more appropriately ascertain those that are contributing and meeting goals in a kingdom. I think this is very straightforward. If you have more detailed stats and numbers, you're going to be able to more appropriately assess, audit, and conclude how a season went, who your performers were. And I'll give you an example on a positive side of this, which isn't just because some people might just say, okay, well, sure, the negative side of it is that, right, players might get removed or be asked to leave if they're underperforming. But again, that's the point, is that if you have this data more available, they may have known, okay, well, dude, this kingdom's a little bit out of reach for me. Let me go try another one that's a little bit more in line with what my stats are and what I can also perform at. So the other side of this is that on the positive end, is if you are, let's say, because there's kingdoms out there that do things, I'm forgetting the name of the kingdom right now because they've told me this a few times, but they give out rewards or accolades, right, for different performance metrics at the end of a season. It's kind of like their end of season reward ceremony show that they do. And I'm sure someone's going to let me know in the comments possibly. But that's an example of something you can do when you have stuff like this. That's a morale booster. That's an engagement booster. There are a number of things that can really factor in a positive way, with this just being one of them for this particular point. The next one, to discourage stat padding, numbers inflation of players. I'm sure, again, there's a number of people in the community that they hear me say that, and they'll mention, again, some of the obvious one. Well, I shouldn't say obvious. I should say some of the low-hanging fruit, right, which is some of the members in FSK, right, people like I Still Chicken, Debin. Those are people they have mentioned. I'm not saying that they do that. What I'm saying is that if you have been around the community long enough and you've seen me you've seen me do stats where I talk about the top killers in the game, the people that have the most stats, these people's names are also associated with things like stat padding and numbers inflation. Now, that's not to say they do that or not, but my point is that to be able to showcase something like that in a more accurate way, where there's no fluff, there's no like gray area, having something in there like that. Also, on top of that, it can generally discourage this, especially if the numbers are publicly available, where you're not having people going out there and doing these things, or merit padding or merit inflating, as an example as well. Because if you add, especially if you add in things like merit breakdowns, well, I guess kills would still be the same as well. You can verify and add on to this even further. Then the last two. Allows kingdoms to have a better vetting process prior to accepting players into kingdoms, as in worst case creates more work for management down the line. This is absolutely true. And it's not even more work for management. You could let someone in and they're underperforming, or they don't meet the expectations, and or maybe they didn't know what they were before because some of the numbers weren't available, or maybe things just weren't as clear for them. You could have situations where those players become nuisances because they came into a kingdom, maybe on their end they felt they were wronged, on the management side they felt they were wronged, and you just create this kind of dramatic havoc that's unnecessary and didn't need to happen, right? It was something that was more controllable versus uncontrollable. And that's what I'm talking about, right? Is something like this. So being able to do that where that you don't have to create more work for management, and or potentially having that spill out into the day-to-day player experience, which again, in some extreme situations, you've probably seen players just go rogue in kingdoms because they don't want to leave. They felt they performed well, but maybe management and the kingdom felt they didn't. Right? This just helps give more clarity and really just reduce that margin of error. The last one is helps kingdoms factor in said data when building KVK teams. I think this is massively important. That can create more fun and exciting seasons, which boosts player retention. How many times have we seen in KVK Diplo chats where we hear about people referencing kills, deads, heals, who actually were the top performers, merit gains or merit amounts that have been accumulated past seasons for certain brackets, right, or tiers of player powers. And this is one of those things that could just add more to that. It could give you a clearer picture on what past performances were. Sure, you can still see some of these things, but you might look at the numbers and say, okay, well, let's remove T1 through T3, and then let's just look at T4 and T5. I think that would be a more accurate and better indicator. And that's my point, is that these are things that can just assist and really help in that area. So hopefully you guys see where I'm going with that. Maybe you connect with some of these. And if there's any points on here that you feel I could have added, please just let me know. Because like I said, now that I'm thinking about it, I could have probably crowdsourced this a little bit more. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.